Hi there and welcome to Trauma Therapy and Why. The introduction into the video you're about to or hopefully watch is a segment in a time of my life suffering trauma and then dealing with trauma beginning in childhood all the way into adulthood. The life segments are broken down part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4, etc., with part 1 beginning in my earliest memory in childhood, suffering trauma events, and then going through life with trauma to where I suffered PTSD at 12. At the end of certain segment videos, I will have a reference page with evidence-based research and neuroscience and their findings on the brain of trauma that leads to destructive behaviors. Hopefully you'll gain insight into yourself or maybe someone you know suffering trauma. If you haven't, please go over to my welcome video, which gives a deeper understanding of who I am, why I'm doing this, and the horrible quality of my videos. I'm trying to keep it raw, not only because A, I don't know what I'm doing, but also B, there's nothing clear or glamour about trauma and living life in trauma. So please subscribe, like or dislike, let me know what I can do to improve or how I'm doing with these videos. I look forward to your subscriptions and your comments. Hopefully you enjoy the video and continue into the other series. Thank you and have a good day or night. Okay, hopefully you made it this far, and as I said before, I'm doing these unscripted. And now I'm beginning to learn why people go by scripts, which I wrote out some notes. This is part 3B because there's some important information I left out, and I'll try to make this quick. Backing up, while I was in the first grade, the first grade that I had failed, my older brother Bill, who was over 18, I remember he had showed up for a point in time being. He had gone off to California and was in the Air Force. And he got a part-time job at a movie theater right down the road from where we lived. And my brother Mike took me to the movies. And my brother Bill was able to get us in for free. Well, nobody knowing any better, my brother Mike, the way he was, snook us, me and him, into an R-rated movie. And I remember it was this horrible horror flick about these college co-ed girls, sorority girls living in a house on campus. And this murderer showed up and just slaughtered them all in this movie. And I remember watching it 3 times. We were there all day long. As far as my mom knew, from what I was told later on, Mike had told her we were going to see this G-rated movie, but we were seeing this horrible movie 3 times. And I remember after the movie, my mom came to pick us up. She actually had to come in and get me. I was not able to get up out of my chair. I was just like comatose, and I wasn't able to move. And so that was the first real trauma that I had experienced. But since I can remember the events afterwards, it wasn't classified as a PTSD because PTSD, which you'll learn later on, the individual really doesn't remember the moments after. That doesn't come till I'm 12. Other crap that went on when I was in the 2nd grade, one of my friends, Steve, he was an exceptional baseball player, and his dad was a coach, and he was the only one that was teaching me to throw the ball and catch. My dad was never around. And so they got me on the Little League baseball team for 7-year-olds. And I was the last to come, and his dad did it as a favor. He kind of knew I was not being taken care of by my father. Anyway, being born the way that I was with the birth asphyxiation, one of the disorders is you're underdeveloped. Your body, along with your learning ability, your motor skills, doesn't develop properly. So I was so short and skinny. I mean, if you turn me sideways, I look like an envelope. So I started playing baseball, which whenever I got the bat, which was far and in between, but when they did put me in, I was always terrified. I never swung. I was just terrified at home plate. But my Uncle John, my dad's brother, had come into town, and that was always a disaster because him and my dad would always end up in a fist fight within one day, within 24 hours, he was going back home. So he was a big baseball nut, and I really looked up to him because I remember him being extremely funny, and he always made me laugh. He was teaching me how to bunt, and I couldn't get it right, so he hit me in the stomach because I kept turning my body towards the pitcher. And he hit me in the stomach, and I fell to the ground gasping for air. And I remember thinking, why? Why would he do this? And he's yelling at me, that's what's going to happen to you. And I remember that day, I said, one day, I'm going to get my revenge. One day, I'm going to be able to do this. I mean, at second grade, I remember making a promise to myself, I will get revenge one day. Not just at him, but the world at large. From there, I remember my mom, before we left, before the third grade, we went up to another sister's up in Jacksonville's house. And they were mega rich, and they had this big mansion on the river, the St. Johns River. And my mom had left and left me with my aunt and uncle, and they had friends over, and they were drunks. And I remember playing with the toy vehicle. I was on my hands and knees, and you know what kids do, rum, 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 rum. And then as adults, we go to the bar and say, rum, 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 please. And anyway, I remember them gathering their friends and they're pointing at me, my aunt and uncle, and they're going, you see this one? He's a mama's boy. This one here's a mama's boy. And they're just picking on me. And they're all laughing. All the adults are looking down at me. And I'm the little kid looking up, and they're all laughing at me, holding their drink glasses. And I started crying. And I got up and I ran to the bedroom I was staying in, and they're yelling, that's right, mama's boy, run, run. You know, for a child, they look up as adults, believing they're right, that adults know what they're thinking about. And I remember being in the bedroom and I wanted to call my dad in South Florida, but I couldn't get through because I didn't know the area code. And then I got upset that here I am finally reaching out to my dad, my security, to come beat them up. I couldn't get through the phone. And I really started believing my dad was not there for me. Through this process, when my dad was grooming me to be a Marine, he also taught me hand-to-hand combat when I was in second grade. He taught me how to kill a man or a person, how to maim them. And I remember telling him, Dad, I'm only in the second grade. And he's like, you just never know. Stand up and attention. And he taught me all these skills, and it really terrified me. And on the flip side of that coin, my mom, when my dad wasn't around, was teaching me to love all others like Jesus. So here's, on one side, my father teaching me to be a future Marine lunatic psychopath like him. And my mom is teaching me to turn the other cheek. Very confusing for me in the long run. And one of the best moments while all this was going on, there was this house down the street being tented for termites. They put a big tent over it. Security guard was there. And all of us kids rode our bike up there. And the security guard got out of his car, and he started witnessing to us about this man named Jesus. And I was just so floored that somebody would die for my sins. I didn't get it. But I remember saying the salvation prayer, and I remember at that age having this peace. And he gave us this little Bible, and I tried to read it throughout at night, and I couldn't understand it. And I remember saying, one day I'm going to know this good book. And I got this bracelet from school that has our name and address and phone number in case of an emergency. And I got the Psalms 23, the Lord is my shepherd, on it. And my wrists were so skinny, they were like this, like a broom handle, so bigger than a pencil. And I remember standing on the sidewalk I was just in awe that, who is this man that loves me? and that was really confused. And I said, I want to get to know this man. So time went on, and I took notes, so forgive me. It's kind of scripted. Third grade comes around before my mom took me and left to go to her sister's in Jacksonville to get away from my dad. I was playing baseball, and I improved. And I remember getting the team photos and back, and I was so short, man. All the other kids looked like adults standing next to me. I mean, I was so underdeveloped. My shirt, which was the smallest, looked like an extra large. My pants were back. I mean, just embarrassing. The hat was so big, like they wear it nowadays in style. Back then, that wasn't style. They had it all the way up top. Mine was way down to here, sideways. And I was so embarrassed by the way I looked. And this is important, which I later learned in therapy. I scratched off my face and all the 4 photos, the team photo and me at bat. I was so ashamed how I looked compared to everybody else. And so this is when I'm going on 9. At 9 years old, I already had a huge self-identity complex, self-esteem issues. And because I noticed I was different. My learning ability, I remember I wasn't catching on in school. I was just so confused, ADHD, which they really didn't diagnose back then. And what the heck? I lost my thought. See, another reason why this should be scripted. Oh, and I had a recurrent nightmare all the time that I was standing and yelling for help and nothing was coming out of my mouth. It was a reoccurring nightmare. And then later in therapy, I had learned that's an indication that a child or an individual believes they are not understood. They're not heard. They're not listened to. People don't care what they have to say. So all this is by 9. I mean, at the age of 9. And I also had this fear. Our neighbors had a pool. And whenever my dad, when he was around, taught me how to swim. And he did this right, gradually worked me to the deep end to swim across. And then I was able to dive in the deep end. And I always had this thought when I dove in the water to touch the bottom of the pool, which for a kid was a great victory of confidence. I always had this thought that I would never reach the top of the water. And that would always fear me. And whenever I saw a pool after that, and being in South Florida, there's a ton of pools. I would always think, am I going to dive in the deep end one day and not be able to reach the top? Kind of like a Stephen King film. That'd be a good horror flick. Instead of a possessed car, a possessed pool. Anyway, so as you can see, my childhood was pretty bad. Not as bad as some. Others do have it a lot worse, but not as good as others. But thank goodness for counseling, because a lot of answers came out. Thank you. Appreciate you. Please stay tuned for more. Thank you.